ever and whenever in the world you're watching this, which is just so much serendipity and synchronicity. Like, how can we even do this? Okay, Sophie's calling in from Portugal. Jomar is in Arizona. I'm in the San Diego area. Amazing. So I started this podcast on Sundays because I just really am amazed at the awe and wonder of life and how unexplainable things happen. And Jomar was telling me that there's a lot of serendipity in her business. And Sophie is world traveler, moved all over the world, lived all over the world. Jomar has lived all over the world. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell us just a little bit about yourself to get started. And then I will poke you with some questions and we'll just see how the conversation flows, because it's synchronous is what it's going to be. Okay. Sophie, do you want to start?
Sure. Well, hi, I'm Sophie. I'm one of the founders of The One Reset. I'm originally Dutch, but like you said, I lived all over the world. So while I was born and raised in the Netherlands, I think as soon as, well, from very early age onwards, there was that itch to go explore. So even during my college, I had the opportunity to live in South Africa and in Dublin. Then right out of college, I actually moved to Dublin, stayed there for 5 years. Then moved to San Francisco, lived there for 5 years working in corporate tech, and then started my coaching journey. And that's where I met Jomar, and that's where The One Reset came to be. And then about a month ago, I packed up all my things again, and I moved to Lisbon in Portugal, and that's where I am right now.
Wow. Amazing. And Jomar, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Jomar Reschreiter. I'm originally from Puerto Rico, and very much like Sophie, at the age of 17, as soon as I was ready to go to college, I left my home country and moved to Massachusetts to pursue a degree in dance, that then evolved into a degree in hotel management as well. And from there, after graduation, moved around the world in the corporate world and in the hospitality industry, all the way into China, back into the United States, while growing a family, raising a family. And about 3 years ago, Sophie and I met, and we've just started just simply connecting on our simple ideas. And last year, as COVID hit, and we were mulling over our great ideas that we had over resets or retreats around the world, and how it couldn't be done. The reset just blossomed from that. And it so happened that last year I went to Portugal for the summer, and I said, I'm going to move here within 5 years. And Sophie is opening our branch there.
Amazing. Let me say hello to Bernard. Hey, Bernard, it's been a while. I know that. I am finally back online. I've been offered, it was slow in the summer, and some things have happened in my personal life. But Bernard, it's great to see you. He usually comes on Sunday mornings to support me. So I went to a coaching school called IPEC, and I know Jomar did. And Sophie, you did too?
Yes, and that's where Jomar and I did our very first in-person weekend together. And then she was my peer coach for the first 12 weeks.
Okay, not the weekend that I helped facilitate.
Unfortunately not, no.
Just missed each other by one weekend.
Mod one.
I just want to acknowledge that Cecilia here. Oh my gosh, Cecilia, I'm not even kidding you. I was thinking about you this morning. Then I saw your post on LinkedIn. Then you called me. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. Sandra Kellums, welcome. So happy that you're here. Coming in from, look at that. She's coming in from YouTube. All right, ladies. The things that I want to ask, because I'm so fascinated by, in America most people speak English. That's it. And it sounds like you both speak like many languages.
Okay.
I speak fluently or as fluent as can be too. So English and Dutch. I'm currently learning Portuguese because I live here, so I feel like I have to, and I want to integrate. I want to make my way around here. So I'm learning Portuguese. So speak to fluently, yes.
Nice. And Jomar, how about you?
Fluently again too. Spoke for a little bit, enough to get me by with directions Mandarin while we were in China. Can still pick up a few things here and there, and I can follow conversations in German because my husband's Austrian, and after 22 years, I can understand enough.
Wow, that's amazing. So, one synchronicity thing that I heard you say, Jomar, is you went from a dance. You started out in dance, so you went from Puerto Rico to Massachusetts.
Correct.
And then you started in dance and you ended up in hospitality management. Tell me a little bit about that.
It was the most randomest of things. I swore I was going to become a ballerina, and I wanted to go to the Boston Conservatory. My mom said, no, you need a bigger university, something else. And I said, fine, I'll go to the University of Massachusetts, thinking at 17 I would transfer over without my parents knowing. Little did I know when I arrived there, because it's pre-internet, that it was 3 hours away, and the chances and possibilities of transferring were just non-existent. So I still pursued my dance career, but then realized that it wasn't what I wanted anymore. So I asked my roommate, so what do you do? And she's like, oh, hotel management. I'm like, oh, I think I like that. So I walked into the hotel management school, and the first person I talked to, I said, excuse me, this is a man. And I said, I'd like to enter this program. What do I do? And he's brought me into his office. Says, all you need is my signature. He happened to be the dean and gave me his
Come on.
So that's how it ended up from there. And it just evolved. Met and married my husband, who was so in the hospitality industry, and everything just started from there, just from those simple conversations.
Well, what's interesting is that there's a book, All I Ever Needed to Know, I Learned in Kindergarten. And it's probably the same for my son has a hospitality. He's a chef. He has a associates in culinary arts and a bachelor's in hospitality management. You could write a book on everything I need to learn about life in hospitality management.
There's a little bit of everything.
There's a little bit of everything, and I can't even imagine being in that business right now. I want to acknowledge that Bernard can speak Spanish, English, and French, and Cecilia is English, Spanish, and some American Sign Language, but I'm rusty.
Wow.
It's interesting that I am, hey Anna, it's interesting that I'm watching old reruns of The West Wing, which I had never watched. And there is Marlene Matten or something like that. She's deaf, so there's a lot of sign language. It's amazing. Okay, ladies, let's talk about Sophie. What was it like going from Dublin? Both my kids have been in Ireland, and they just absolutely love it. And what was it like from going to Dublin, to San Francisco?
It was a good change, but I loved living in Dublin. I lived there for 5 years. I absolutely loved it, and I think I got to that point where after 5 years I was deciding whether either if I'm gonna stay here, I'll probably stay here forever and ever, or I'm gonna pack up and explore and see what else is out there. And funny story about how I ended up in San Francisco was that my full intention and all effort was into going to Singapore. So my plan never was the States. I always said about America, I was like, I would love to visit. I would love to go on vacations. I would love to do trips. I have no interest in living there. And I remember this so clearly because I remember half a year before I actually moved to the States, I had to renew my health insurance. And the health insurance I had, they had two packages available, either worldwide coverage, including the States and excluding the States. I was like, excluding States, I won't need it. I'm not gonna live there. And then fast forward 6 months, this opportunity came about to go to San Francisco. I remember I had the interview on Wednesday and I got the job offer on Friday morning. And I was like, well, I guess this is one of those things that is just meant to be. So I just decided to go for it. And I absolutely love San Francisco. And Jomar and I had a conversation about this last week, or the week before actually, that I love my life in Dublin, but I didn't realize how much I love the sun. And San Francisco and California brought me that sunshine, and I think that leveled up my happiness for sure. And that's really where, when I was now deciding to move out of San Francisco, I was like, I know one thing, I want to go somewhere where the sun shines. So that's how Portugal came about.
That is so amazing. And looking back, when you were younger, did you think that was a big deal? I'll ask Jomar to go from Puerto Rico to, I think I'll study in Massachusetts. Where is Massachusetts? Yeah.
For me?
At the time, did you think it was a big deal?
Oh, you know, because the beauty of not knowing is like a fear. In that sense, it's like when you're certainly naive about certain things, you don't know, like, you know, how hard it might be to get into anything. You simply go for it, and that has served me so well in every aspect of my life. The school that I applied for had a waiting list of 2 years to get in there. I just happened to walk in, talk to the dean. I showed him a simple drawing of a hotel in my head that I wanted to create. And he was so smitten by it that he gave me the signature. So pure, there was no fear because I didn't know, and I love living that way.
Yeah. When I was 19, I left Philadelphia and I moved to San Diego, which is really, Philadelphia is a foreign country. And I moved to San Diego, and it's looking back, I think, oh my God, like that was crazy.
I think where, like, looking back, it's like, these are big steps. Like, not only I'm also from a rural part of the Netherlands, like from a very small town, moving to Dublin and then moving to San Francisco. Like, looking back, these are massive steps. But well, I think very much like Jomar, in that moment, it's kind of like that. There's no fear there, and I've always adopted the, well, we'll see if I like it. If I don't like it, I'll just go back. Like, there will be a different plan. So in that moment, it feels like a big step, but also really not, because there's always an alternative.
But you know, it reminds me of the name of your business, and I'm sorry if I posted it wrong. I saw it, The Reset, on your website, but then I hear you talk about the One Reset. So what does that mean? Because it reminds me of taking risks, and like nothing is permanent. So you went to San Francisco, and the absolute worst thing that can happen is you can go back to Dublin or somewhere else. Hey, Pete, thanks for joining us. Thank you for being here. So tell me how it seems like The Reset really fits into the way you work your lives.
Yes, and I think I can say that for both of us, very much so. And I think because even for me, when moving here to Portugal, that was in the moment, I recognize that as a big step, because I actually said goodbye to my corporate career of 10 years and really was like, I'm going full in on that and moving to a new country where I don't actually speak the language. So that is a change where I actually very much recognize the big step. And I do think, like, with conversations with Jomar and some other coaches, what really helped me was actually exploring, like, what are the alternative routes, but most importantly, like, what is the worst case scenario? Like, what's the worst possible outcome? And I, for the life of me, could not figure one out. And then I was like, I think this decision is made. Like, there is no worst case scenario. And I think with the reset, that is really what we want to accomplish as well, where people take actually a moment to take a breath and really take a view of the entire field and see all of the opportunities, and then consciously choose one of the opportunities that is right in front of them and go for it. And if it doesn't work out, you just pause again, take a deep breath and reset and restart again. Like, there is no end of the road here. There's just a different track to follow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Jomar, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, she said it beautifully, but yes, and our first initial thought was to bring tired people from all around the world to a completely different location, kind of fully disoriented, where your habits, your everything that you usually do, you're in a completely different place. So you have to kind of think about them again. These habits, like, are not coming as normal. When COVID happened, that was not possible. And then we decided, how do we reset in place? How do we realize all of our thoughts and everything is coming back to, how are we realigning back ourselves as we're coming back to work, as we're coming back to our families or new realities? What is it that we want them to be? And becoming very, very intentional in that. So when we decided to do the group series and our coaching and everything that we do, is with that intent, is acknowledging where you are right now. Let's take a pause, let's take a breather, and then make a really nice, just a good decision that feels really with integrity, according to your values.
Oh, I love values. I love values-based everything. When I do my coaching, one of the first things we do is figure out what the client's values are. So it narrows the road. If these are my values and I'm going to stick to them, and then I work with a lot of supervisors, then I tell my employees what my values are. They're going to know how Joan's going to react because I told you. In a given situation. Yeah. And Sandra is saying, again, maybe Sandra, maybe Sandra, I could fill a book with my synchronicities and manifestations. And what I'd like for you to comment on that, either one of you, is not everybody sees them. People could go through their lives and say, really, I've never had one. So tell me, what do you think that means?
Is it okay, Sophie, if I share one that is personal? When Sophie and I were talking about, I think this is what was going to change, whether or not she was going to continue working in her corporate career and do the reset on the side, it was quiet. And then she said it out loud. This is what I want to do. And it just felt so within the integrity, and then everything else aligned. So we have this kind of joke, like, we're just going to put it out there in the universe, and lo and behold, it's going to happen. It's going to work out. So the moment we say it out loud, it's like the universe is listening, and it becomes funny to us, but it is very much that part of what we've seen. And most of us, the biggest fear is we don't even want to say it out loud. We're terrified to even say it out loud of exactly what is it that we want. The moment we say it out loud, it's going to come to us.
Right. You want to go, oh, no.
Oh, yeah, I said it.
And there's also, because I remember so clearly as well, when I made that choice not so much of leaving my corporate career, but actually leaving San Francisco, because that came beforehand. Saying it out loud, there's not only that fear that stops you from saying it out loud, but once you said it out loud, on the one hand, it's just like that relief off your shoulders, like you said it out loud. But then what comes next is, once it's out there, you can't ignore it anymore. Like, you need to do something with it because it's out there. And especially if you, not only if you, I would imagine it's actually still as powerful if you just say it to yourself, but I said it in a conversation with Jomar, and then once it's out there and then she has heard it, and then it's this thing that you need to do something with. So I think it's twofold, like that saying out loud, that fear of actually saying it, like that voice was present in my head for a long while before I said it out loud. And then once you say it, it's on the one hand that relief of like, this is what I want, and I'm going for it, but then it's like, oh my God, now I need to go for it. Now what? I think there is that balance between that fear and a little bit of, can I say that, positive anxiety? What's the better word for that? Like that excitement around it, but excitement about the unknown.
It's interesting because Simon Sinek says, are you nervous or are you excited?
Mm-hmm.
So he has also said that it's excitement sometimes, yeah. What do you think about, getting back to what I was asking was, is everyone capable of this? Is everyone capable of seeing the serendipity and synchronicity of life? And like, how do you develop it?
I can start, Jomar. I think everyone is capable of it, yet I think a lot of people don't take the time or the moment or the silence to actually recognize it. And I see that in myself and in the world that we live in, and like living in or having lived like the corporate career path. It's just, you're on that train and you just go, and like, this is the role and this is the next role, and then you go for a good evaluation and performance review, and then you go for the next promo, and then you get your promotion in, and then you're like, so what's next? Do I stay in here? What do I do next? Like, you're just on that train. So all of these synchronicities are happening, but you just, because you're on that train, you're so focused on just going that you don't actually recognize that. And I think that's, I truly believe everyone is capable of recognizing and seeing them in their lives if they take that moment to actually pause and reset and like really take that moment, take that breath, and looking back, or just marvel at what is happening right in front of you. But you do need some stillness or like a hold to take that moment to actually recognize it.
Right. Yeah. Where people say that we have become human doings instead of human beings, and that it's the pause, it's the magic, it's the spirituality, the spirit, the energy. We all studied the power of energy is in that pause. And Sandra, I'd love to hear what you have to say. And Pete, I know that you've had all kinds of, Pete and Cecilia have put together an incredible business, and I'm sure there has been things they said, this is what we want to do. And then boop, it's happening. So I have had people say to me, do you know that the kind of stuff that happens in your life doesn't happen to everyone? I'm like, what? But I do. I pause. I go, oh my gosh, did you see that? Oh my gosh, did you? And to not confuse my own inner crazy voice with what I think is what I would say God's voice, I have people to run it by. I have a coach. I have really close friends. I have, I'm constantly reading, and, so if you look for it, you'll see it in everywhere. Here we go with Sandra. Most of mine came as a surprise after I thought about it and had intentions of buying them myself. but I received most of them free, usually the next day, where I received with only a thought. That has happened to me so many times. Jomar, has that ever happened to you? I'm going to leave it up there.
Yes, it does. It happens all the time, and it makes me giggle. It's just to the point where it's like, we know that it's coming once you just are open to it. And what Sophie was saying is so important to take that pause, because we're in so much autopilot, and we end up distracting ourselves with so many things, whether it's our phones or everything else around us. But we all have that capability, and for us, as coaches, most of what we offer is really that pause for them to take that moment and create those little connections that then allow that power of synchronicity. I've had clients that come to me and they finally just sit down, say everything that they want on a list. They don't have an idea how it's going to happen. And there is nothing necessarily crazy that we do. And little by little, you see it all coming to fruition in the most beautiful way. But it's just coming from that place of really knowing what you want. At the end of the day, if you don't know it, then you don't know when it comes.
And I don't, little things for me, like, man, I really wish I had a pen. I really wish I had a pen right now. And then just looking, and there's a pen, or someone, you know, somehow, this is just a made up story, but then it somehow appears. It's amazing. And Pete says, well, I pushed the little button, but it didn't come up. Okay, Pete, being able to have an idea and put it into action is such a great thing. I want to Ember Alerts. Not having to ask permission is such a, let's say, Joan permission. One of my mottos is permission to be great is granted. I have developed a coaching philosophy, which I call PIES, P-I-E-S, and the P is for permission to be great is granted. And sometimes people are just waiting. We are still little children inside, waiting for someone to say it's okay, because it's out of everyone else's comfort zone, because we don't live.
I am sorry, I am laughing at this because Jomar and I, we just spent a week developing the content of our next series, and permission granted is a very big part of that series. Like,
yeah. Pete is saying sorry to talk text, and I want to say back to that, Pete, sorry, I'm old, so I don't know a lot of the text language. That reminds me of Marianne Williamson. Have you ever heard of Marianne Williamson?
I have.
Oh, Jomar, I'm going to have to turn you on to her, and she has a book called. She studied the Course of Miracles. If you've heard of that, and then the Course of Miracles is very difficult. The pages are like paper thin, like tissue thin, and it's thick, and it's a long process. And she wrote a book on that called, I think it's called like Reflections of Love or something. And in there, one of her most famous quotes that a lot of people think came from Nelson Mandela is basically what I call just be great. And in a part of it, it says, your playing small does not serve the world. And I love that. And she says, when you give yourself permission to be great, you automatically give other people permission to be great. And I just love, love, love that. And Sandra is telling us about more free things that she has gotten. And I have too. A drum set, a guitar, a Jeep, a trip to Argentina. I hope you brought the guitar on the trip. What else would you like to tell us about your business and how it's going to work? So I come for a weekend, and then what do we do?
Well, right now, because of where we are and the rules and everything, we're really just focusing on the online series, which are 5 weeks where we meet once a week for 90 minutes for 4 sessions, and then a wrap-up session of 60 minutes. And we have expand, which is expanding our awareness, which is that just learning to take that pause and recognizing who we are, what are our core values. How does it feel when we go against those core values and when we live in them? So because if we know ourselves, then we know a little bit more what we want to ask for looking forward to. So that is expand, and that's starting September 8th, which centers around the core values, what we want. And then we move to explore, expand, explore, and embrace, which is explore yourself, your surrounding, and embrace yourself. And then once COVID is out and we're able to freely travel, we're going to meet in joy, because our motto is to live in joy. So our live retreats are a weekend of meeting in joy, to really, really living that full experience of just being present and resetting. Mm-hmm. So if I've missed something, go ahead and add.
No, I think, Joan, what you mentioned about the permission to be great, I think we touch upon that with our Expand series as well, because not only is it about defining our core values, but then how do you actually stand with them proudly, and like how can you own them and then integrate them in your daily life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's truly where the power is, where you have that permission to not only like recognize like this is truly what I stand for, but then also, and that's a good thing and I'm proud of that, and that has brought me here. Like I've gone this entire path and this has brought me here, and from here on out there is a world of opportunities open, and it's mine for the choosing. And I now know what to choose because I know what I truly value in life. So it just having those, especially the first one for Expand, we focus a lot as well on those values and the core values, because just having those clear, as you know as well, and as you mentioned, that will open up such a strong confidence in people, and that we've seen change, that they take that on, and it's like that actually it is such a small change of just rewording something, but that made a world of difference in how they view the world or how they view the opportunities in daily life.
And I could tell you that when we ran that first series, because we've already ran this series once, it's a small group setting, the aha moments, the things that have come out of it, in terms of where they've moved to, whether it is in things that they want or in the way they think and view things, it's just night and day. And it's so wonderful to see that, and to see these aha moments to come up and say, wow, and stand in that power. It's just really quite brilliant. And when you're talking about serendipity and how do we increase that, knowing what you want and just knowing that you have the power to even ask for that is the first step towards that.
Mm-hmm. And when you both were just talking, your whole energy changed. You sat up at one point, Sophie. You like sat up straight and were like, it was like it was coming from every cell in your being. Amazing.
Yeah, we ran the series. Next one is starting in 2 weeks, and it's so exciting. It truly is so exciting. And the first time we ran it, I had made the decision to actually quit my job, but I hadn't quit yet. And then we ran the series, and it is that moment where you're like, okay, this has to, well, not this has to work, because I knew it would work, but the fact that it works so flawlessly and brilliantly gave that action like, yes, we are so on the right path, and this is what we're meant to do.
Exactly.
So I'm very excited, and like I said, we just spent, Jomar was here in Portugal for a full week, and we spent pretty much 24/7 together, working out on content, exploring a lot of the Portuguese wine and the restaurants here as well. So that was fun involved too, because we lived up to our mantra of to live in joy. But we've started like working on the content for the next series, and like both of them, I'm just so excited to bring them out in the world as well.
Oh yeah.
So amazing. So amazing. I put Marianne's quote here. I shall read it to you. Our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. We were born to manifest the glory of God that is within us. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. So let me just write her name here since it's not my quote. Yeah, and that's kind of the motto of my life. I heard that probably 15 years ago, that quote, and it really just changed everything for me. And yeah, so do each of you do you want to comment? Anybody want to comment on that quote? Does anything jump out at you?
Oh, everything for me. The part is, who are you not to be? Brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous. It doesn't serve us not to be just exactly that, or anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
So it is powerful.
I actually have I've run many retreats myself, and what I do is I cut this up I put them on like index cards or whatever you want. Each sentence. And then I put number 1 for the first sentence, number 2, and I just randomly give them to people. And then I have them stand up and say, okay, who has number 1? And they read it. Who has number 2? They read it, Then I put the whole thing up all together. And as Synchronicity would have it, the number that you got really, really spoke to you. So then I'll go around and I'll say, number 1, did anything, jump out at you? And it's just randomly amazing. Yeah.
And I think what is so fascinating to me is, and I'm very curious, that's a whole different discussion altogether, but where that so came from, where people are so afraid to own up to their light and to own up to their all the positive and fantastic attributes that they have. Because back when I was working at Google, I used to run these workshops. They're called I Am Remarkable. They're also externally available, and that is really, it started out as a women empowerment workshop, but then it started broadening its scope, because it's not actually only women who have to deal with this. This is across the board, where truly just owning that, because at the end of the workshop, the exercise was listing out the things for what you truly are remarkable for. And we can all write that list. You have hundreds of things that you are remarkable for. But when you start asking people to write down, tell me what you are remarkable for, it's there's a blank stare of I don't know. And then once you work them through the exercises and talk them through it, and they actually come up with that list of writing down all the things that they are remarkable for, and then having to speak those out loud, and it is so fascinating. I've literally sat in a room with a rocket scientist. That was genuinely, truly her job. And for her to say out loud, I am remarkable because I am actually very smart, and having her say that out loud was just such an amazing moment. But it's one of those things that everyone else around you would say about you, and we are so afraid to say that about ourselves. Yeah. And I think that this quote says that so eloquently, and I think that's also what we're trying to do with our reset and pause, know yourself, but then also truly stand in your power, as Jomar said. because we all have the light to shine.
Exactly. And I think, when did it start? I think at the beginning of time. I just know that in the Bible, there's a quote that says, don't put your light under the bushel, put it on top so it lights the world. So, I mean, that's thousands of years ago. So, and we're taught to, like, don't be a braggart, don't be a show. We're taught, which is a part of my training, don't be. Like, we can all tell you the list of things we were told don't do, but we don't have a long list of the things we were told to do. So it's reconditioning, it's rewiring the brain.
And that's a very good point as well, because there is a difference between owning who you are, what you stand for, and then that fine balance of being perceived as arrogant or as bragging. And I think I'm Dutch, and people who brag or are seen as arrogant are taken down a notch very quickly. So very quickly it's like, okay, come back down now, that's all right. So yeah, there's a lot of conditioning there too, for sure.
And what are your thoughts on this? I made this up and I tell my clients it all the time. I think everything is a continuum. And if we have humility, being truly humble and being full of humility is just owning myself, just being myself. And so we'll say that's the fulcrum point of this balance beam. And then over here is doormat, which I have heard does not translate into other languages, but because I was working with someone with a different language, and they were like, "What's a doormat?" But do you both understand what I mean by doormat? People just walk all over you, disregard you. You're not important. And all the way over here is arrogant, narcissistic. So there's a, like, if you think of like any kind of other band, there would be degrees, and we want to kind of try to stay as close as we can to here in the middle, but even that is a degree. And then you're getting into one of the hardest things my clients have, one of the hardest words my clients can't say is no. And that's where a lot of our problems come from, because we're saying yes, we're being a doormat, we're saying yes to things we don't want to do. But yeah, it's
I think to that point, and to the point where Sophie was making about bragging and doormat, down to authenticity. And where are you coming from? I mean, if you are being just authentic of who you are, and your intent is to stand in your integrity and your authenticity, there's no way you can be. And if you're taken as someone that is arrogant, then maybe that's. I've heard that, whatever other people think about me is none of my business. If I'm coming from a place of pure authenticity and integrity, then everything, it becomes much easier to say no, to say yes, to live there and to stand in that power, knowing that is just simply who you are.
And it reminds me of when Sophie said about curiosity, and I think both of you have that, is that being in the middle, being truly humble and true to myself, but I'm aware, I have emotional intelligence, so I can read your body language and I can say, oh, I'm sensing something's different. Am I right? So that I'm not completely arrogant and just going, I'm doing whatever I want and I'm just gonna bullnose my way through everything. It's like you're aware when you're in your true humility, when you're truly humble, you're like aware of the effect, as we studied energy again, of my energy. So,
Yeah, and I think for me personally as well, the way I would describe arrogance is where the external sources come into play, where you start comparing, like, I am better than the person next door, look at me, I am earning so much more money than this person, or like versus, and that's what Jomar says, authenticity is like standing in your own power, like knowing that I'm good enough, and then also knowing that I still be good enough while taking a step back. I can stand back and let someone else take the spotlight. That will not change how I feel about myself, nor will that change it just won't change how I feel about myself. So, and I think arrogance comes in where it's like, well, she can't have the spotlight because I'm better than her. And I think it's that line where bring it back to being authentic and just bring it back to who you are in your
Yeah. I have some comments over here. We missed Sandra earlier, so I'm not really sure when we were talking about this. I tried to tell people about all the abilities they have. We all have, but don't believe and can't see them. And I got to tell you, people look at me, I'm guilty as charged. You know, people look at me as powerful, strong, go-getter, and I'm still like, really? I watch Netflix all night or whatever. I always want to it's uncomfortable. Sandra says they just don't believe it. Following up on that, Sandra's agreeing that in the Bible it has many verses: ask, believe, receive. It's literal, true, and just have intentions. And you spoke about that. Sometimes we don't even need to speak it, to just think it, and it manifests. Which reminds me of The Secret. I'm sure you're aware of The Secret. Anna says, this discussion adds an increased sense of gratitude that we live in a country that allows us to follow our dreams without fear of reprisal or punishment. That's reminding me a lot of what's going on with the Taliban right now. And
with Anna saying that, I come from my background after hospitality was a nonprofit. And there is so much of that sense of burden in the world and not being able to just help everyone. And it can bring us down terribly. So it is very, very much important to just maintain that energy and to understand, okay, you might not be able to create a huge ripple effect, but the changes, the things that you can do here, the way you treat others and everything else have a big effect. And I'm seeing that as just when Sandra said also be grateful after you receive. It's just that level of it's how you show up. We can make changes here.
Yeah, I do think that gratitude is such a big part of it. You know, one of the reasons that we are as we are is because we do the pause, but then in the pause we say, wow, thank you. Wow, check that out. It wasn't like I just went on to the next call. There's a pause.
But you have to take that pause. And I think a lot of people don't allow themselves to take that pause.
And I guess people might be afraid of how long does it take? How long does the pause take, Sophie?
That's a very good question. I think if it's in between calls, it can just be as quick as a deep breath or just to walk around. But I genuinely, truly, obviously, because otherwise we wouldn't have started the reset, do think there is value in actually taking a little bit of a longer pause every now and then to truly actually step off that train or autopilot or hamster wheel, whatever analogy we gave it, to actually consider, is this the train or the plane that I want to be on, or do I want to switch seats? And I think how long that pause is, it also depends so much on how you lived your life up to that point, because maybe you're actually already so in tune with what you want and who you are and living your best life that you can take a little pause and like, no, this is good. I'm on the right track. And fantastic, keep going. And then take that pause for that moment of gratitude. And so that you can shine that light along to others as well. And then maybe if you realize like, I'm unhappy in my job or I'm so stuck, that's where pauses they might take a little bit longer to really figure out what is it that is stuck, like what is it in this moment that's making you either unhappy or feeling unsatisfied or unfulfilled, whatever it is. And I think that sometimes takes a little bit longer because I think because we are so used to going on that train, we don't even know how we got to that point. And we don't even know what it is exactly that bugs us. Like, it might be like, I just don't like my job. But is it truly that, or is there something else percolating inside?
Yeah. Jomar, do you want to add anything to that?
I think yesterday I was reading it came out in the news, and it made me laugh out loud, but then at the same time not so funny. It said that scientifically proven that 15 minutes of time alone can increase your ability of like your levels of well-being. But interestingly enough, another study said that people most prefer electric shock than spending 15 minutes alone. So this is how conditioned we are to just like saying, put it aside and let's just move on to something else, rather than even providing ourselves just those short moments that we might not think are necessarily going to bring that much value, but they do.
That reminds me of instant gratification. And I'm guilty of it myself. I don't really play the lottery, but I would probably pick a scratcher rather than wait till Wednesday for the numbers. So tell me about the instant gratification in regards to the pause, or how your process goes.
I think that then we go from I think we bring it down to gratitude and just staying in the moment, taking stock of what we have. Instead of the running list of all the grievances and things that we don't have, what are we grateful for? It can just be as simply as, I have my hands, I'm sure you, Sophie, you were reading Viktor Frankl, where he woke up every morning and he said, I still have my ability to work. They can strip anything else from me, but I have my mind. It's in that moment, just creating gratitude for what you have. That's instant gratification right there, if that's what we want.
Right. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love what you just said. I'm sorry I kind of took you off guard. You're like, wait, I don't understand the question. But gratitude, I'm going to write that down. Gratitude is instant gratification.
Yes. And the moment.
I love what you just said. That's amazing. Write that down as a quote from yourself. Because what I was kind of getting at is that your process, your reset is a process. So you may not walk out the first class, okay, I got it together, I'm healed. You know, it takes, as coaching does, like some of the miracle of coaching happens between sessions.
Yes.
First the aha comes, and then the results come. Yeah.
We come from one very specific thing that you just said when you said we're healed. We believe no one is broken to be healed.
Awesome. Perfect. I love it. So tell me then, what do you say?
Sophie, you want to take that one?
We've more, I don't know if we've coined a term for it, it's more fine-tuning as to what really brings out that light in you and what makes you shine and what you truly want out of the world, out of your life, and what you want to bring into it. Because when Jomar and I got together to talk about the reset and our philosophy and how we wanted to approach this was very strong for both of us from the get-go. It's like, we don't want to go in like, oh, you start, we have the solution, or like in that negative to the point of like, we'll heal you or we fix all your problems, because neither of us has that ability. That ability only sits with that person themselves. And then B, we truly genuinely believe that no one needs fixing. Like everything leading up to the moment that brought you here will at one point or another serve you. However hard that moment might have been, there are learnings to be taken out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And from those learnings you can grow, and from what you will grow out of that would have never happened without everything that happened beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't be, there's no fixing there. It's not, you're not broken. It just brought you to a point in your life, and now you can do something with that. I didn't say that as eloquently as I wanted it to, but I hope that came across.
It comes across to me because I live in the same world as you live in, and it reminds me of, as difficult as it is, there are no mistakes.
There are absolutely no mistakes, and it might be very hard in the moment to remember, because we're not saying that there are no hard moments or moments of absolute where you're sick and you just want to hide from the world and cry, and they're dark and it's hard. We're not saying that that is not happening, but we're saying that if you accept that as part of your life, that brought you here and that taught you something. It taught you, because then if you're in conversation with us about the reset, that means that you made a choice right there and then to actually make a change, to take that conscious step of like, okay, this no longer is serving me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you might not have come to that conclusion if you had not gone through that difficult patch. And if you start embracing that as just your journey, that's what we believe will lead to that path of joy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you said it, we have, and when we do the reset and you're asking, instant gratification, we bring it down to, what are you learning? What are you learning about yourself? That right there can be the aha, that instant gratification that if you think that is needed, but there's always something to be taken from that experience. And that can continue to grow until the following week. And what are you learning then from adding this one to this one? And then we follow it along to the following week, while at the same time building that ability to just pause and slow down and realize that we don't necessarily, that instant gratification, the way that we know it to be, high endorphins, it's not the only way to be or to live.
Mm-hmm. 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 Jeff is saying he's the first one quoting you.
I love it.
Love it.
I love it. And he said, I'm going to use it. I'm loving it. I'm using it. That's awesome. It started here.
Yes.
Can you believe an hour has gone by? So what haven't we spoken about that you want people to hear about you, and how can we get in touch with you? Is there anything we didn't cover you want to talk about? And we can certainly go over a few minutes to make sure that whatever you came here to get out has gotten out.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having us. I can't believe the full hour has passed already, because I was just really enjoying this conversation, and it's so fantastic to see how this conversation has ended up, and then ending it with like the whole focus on gratitude. I love, because I think I won't go down that route. I want to say when my life really started changing is when I started using a gratitude journal about 8 years ago. It was the 5-minute journal. If anyone has it, or has not used it yet, I can highly recommend it, because I think I started using that, and that's when I think for me there was a pivot in my life. But we need to wind it down. I think you can find us on our website is theonereset.com. And then all our social media is at @theonereset. And then we do have our next online series taking place September 8th. So that's in 2 weeks, Wednesday, and we have 2 time slots. So we are accommodating different time zones. So we have one in the morning, 9 a.m. Pacific time, or noon Eastern time. And then at 5:30 Pacific time, 8:30 Eastern time. And we love for people to join that.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for this platform. One thing that Sophie and I have started and we love, candid conversations, just conversations that enrich our days and enrich our lives, conversations that are not centered in grievances and pettiness, but, you know, that really explore areas like serendipity, gratitude, and all the different powers that may be, that are just so valuable to also bring out and discuss. And you're doing that. So really, thank you for that.
Thank you. Come back anytime. And Anna again is saying thank you. Great, great conversation. So when you say the one reset, is it the number one or spell out number one?
Both work, but the
They
one.
both work. That's nice.
Yeah.
Good. Good for you.
On social media, it's with the number one.
Onereset.com. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, ladies, what's going to happen now is I'm going to hit this little button. We're going to go back into the green room, and we can chat more privately. Hey, thank you so much, everyone that's on LinkedIn, and Sandra, and there's other people on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you so much. Reach out to Jomar or Sophie or me for anything you need. Please come back for the next time I have a show. It'll be in a few weeks. I will talk to you then. Have a grateful day.
All right.